Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ava Bella, and today is a very different kind of video, as you guys will soon find out. I'm gonna make this intro pretty short because the rest of the video explains everything, so there's not much beforehand I can give you. However, there are a few things that you guys need to know. I had a double lung transplant, August 1st, 2013. And so I also had a YouTube channel, not at that time, but several years. I don't remember how long ago it was at this point. I had a YouTube channel at some point back in the height of the beauty sphere when that was big, because I wanted to learn how to do makeup. Those videos do not exist anymore. I deleted all of those videos, except for this video that is going to play. So if you watched my Claude demo, I mentioned that it was a pre-recorded video, but not really. That's why, because I made this video that is going to play here soon 4 years ago when it was my seventh, maybe it was 5 years ago now, when it was my 7th transplant anniversary. I kind of wanted to make a video talking about my experience. And, you know, as we do, as YouTubers do, they talk about the things that happen in their lives. And this was one thing that happened in my life on August 1st. So, you know, obviously that's why I'm posting it today. That's why I posted it on that day back then. And so, yeah, again, like I said before, it was supposed to be a makeup channel. So that's why I'm kind of like, you know, doing makeup as I'm talking about it. However, as we all know today, I can't do two things at once. So I kind of abandoned the makeup as I'm talking because it doesn't work out. I do have pictures of myself before the transplant. I don't remember if I have pictures after. I can't remember. I'm not sure. I really don't. I listened to the video this morning, and I don't want to watch it again to see what kind of pictures I have up. I know I have some for sure because I kind of saw a glimpse of them as I was going through it. I don't want to watch it or listen to it again because it's very emotional for me. I cry hearing about my experience, and it's not hearing about my experience, it's reliving and like remembering the things that I'm talking about. And so yeah, anyway, long story short, again, I hope you guys enjoy this little bit of vulnerability I'm about to show you. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment, feel free to subscribe and like the video if you like it. If not, that's fine too. And yeah, enough with the rambling. I will see you guys in the next video. And now, here is past me. Hey everyone, how you guys doing? Right, so today is kind of a big day for me to be recording. And I'm sure that you've already seen in the title why. This story, I guess you could call it, has been something that I've had in my head to do since I even first thought about making a YouTube channel. It's come with a lot, I won't say a lot of preparation, probably just a lot of anticipation on my part because I am kind of anxious to share this story with you guys. And just some of the struggles that I've had with it. Look, I'm breaking this paper because I'm nervous about making this. While I do this, I don't know if this is going to work too well, so if I find out it's not working very well, I'll go ahead and just stop, but I am going to try and do a makeup look that I've had in my head since first thinking about making this video while I talk about my experience. Alright, so to start off this story, I guess we'll just start at the very, very beginning, and if I look over here, it's because I'm, again, looking at my notes. So, I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis when I was between the ages of 2 and 3. They did what was called a skin test. And what that is that, it's called a sweat test, I believe. What they do is they do something and my skin turned blue, I believe, which indicated that I had cystic fibrosis. And even though I had cystic fibrosis, my childhood is pretty normal. Um, Now there are a lot of kids who unfortunately are not so lucky as I was, and who have a very hard time and unfortunately do lose their lives at a very early age. It was a lot more common before probably the 90s, I believe. I haven't done my extensive history on this, but I do know that I was born in a time where it was very lucky for me to have survived childhood with cystic fibrosis. So for that, I do count my lucky ass stars for that. The main difference between my childhood and maybe somebody who wasn't sick was that I had to go to the doctor's office obviously a lot more. And I also had to do what my doctors considered, they called it tune-ups. So what a tune-up is that it is a period of 2 weeks where you stay in the hospital and they kind of pump you full of antibiotics. What they did for that, especially before going to school and being around a bunch of kids, I think they just kind of wanted to prepare, you know, like, hey, you're going to school. We know that you're going to be around people. Let's just, tune you up before it. I'm going to tell you guys what a very, very broad definition as to what CF is. And that is the disease that I had that had to lead me to having a transplant. What cystic fibrosis is, again, this is a very broad generalization of it because there's a lot that goes into this disease. Effectively what it is that it is a mutation of your genes that it basically it's a I'm so worried about getting something wrong and spreading misinformation about it. People with cystic fibrosis have a lot of mucus in their lungs, and it can also affect their pancreas and their intestinal lining, to where the most affected is the lungs. And what that does is that it will make mucus to where it closes up your small airways, making it extremely difficult to breathe. Eventually, it got to the point where it was impossible for me to breathe without oxygen. There are a lot of digestive issues that we tend to have because of this overproduction of mucus. A lot of us are very, very skinny. There's so much going into the definition of CF and what it is. Again, I just know what it was for me. For me, I had an overproduction of mucus in my lungs. It prevented me from being able to get enough air in the majority of the time, up to a certain age. Like, I can't stress enough how much of a normal childhood that I had. Again, other than the tune-ups and the doctor's visits and things like that. But it did eventually, obviously, get to the point where I couldn't breathe anymore. And we'll go more to detail about all that when the time comes. Right now, I'm just trying to get this first 5 minutes out, just trying to explain the very, very basics of a disease that is very, very complex and, everything else. I will, if you look in the description below, I have links to what a tune-up is, so that you guys can read more about that. I have the links to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, which gives you more than enough resources to read up on CF to find out what it is for yourselves. Because I can sit here and say that it's a genetic mutation, but after doing a very, very brief research, just to kind of get my bearings on what I haven't had to deal with for 7 years at this point, I read that there's 1,700 mutations for this disease. So it's not something that can be just stated and it's a one hat fits all type of thing. So please, I implore you guys to go look into that website if you want to know more about it. But as of right now, I'm just going to go ahead and get into my story. So I didn't really notice it having too much an effect on my life until I was probably around 17 to 18 years old. I had always known that I had difficulty breathing, but it didn't really get to the point where it affected my life until about that age. And I also need to note that I was an extremely rebellious teenager. I still kind of am a little bit. Not that I'm a teenager, but I am still very rebellious. I don't like to be controlled. I don't particularly like to be told what to do. Wasn't really the doctor's rules I wasn't following. It was my mother's rules I wasn't following. When she would say, like, you need to do your treatments, your breathing treatments, you need to do what we call a vest. The website can explain what a vest is. It's just basically something that you put around your chest. It shakes you and it tries to loosen up all of the gunk so you can cough it out better. I would sit there and say, Mom, I like to describe the rebelliousness of mine and my mom's relationship was, if she told me to jump, I would crawl. And I don't know if that's a good analogy or not. That's the best one I can come up with. Whenever she's told me to do something, I would do the exact opposite, or I just wouldn't do it at all because I don't like to be controlled. I kind of want to go into detail about why I didn't take care of myself too much. We've already established that I didn't. Thought I dropped something. We've already established that I didn't. The reason, I guess, that I can perceive in my head as to why I didn't was because I always got better. There were a lot of times when I got sick, obviously. And I always got better. Even at my worst, where I would have 104 fever, that happened, from pneumonia. I got better, and I would come out of the hospital feeling great and being able to take on the world. And I remember distinctly saying something similar like that to one of my respiratory therapists. He distinctly said, "There's going to be a day where you're not going to." And that didn't hit me at that time, but I remember it now, kind of as a warning. However, that warning came very, very late for me to begin to take care of myself so late in life. Because I had done 18, I think at that time it was 20 years of damage of just not taking care of myself at that time. So that whole warning or advice that he gave me came in the summer, and it was that following January that I learned I needed a transplant. Obviously, when they told me, I was in a very big state of shock, kind of not believing it was real for a long time, because how do you process that we need to take your organs out and replace them with somebody else's in one sitting? It took me a long time to come to terms with how bad I had gotten, how bad I let myself get. But I wasn't shattered at that point. I was still very much under the impression that, oh, well, wow, that really, really sucks, but maybe I can do my treatments and, try really, really hard and get better. And that was kind of my mentality at that time. And remember when I said it hadn't hit me, or it hadn't shattered me yet, the realization that I needed a transplant hadn't shattered me yet. It did eventually. And the way I kind of think of it is, it hit me in very small doses, that this was very real. And I might get emotional because I do feel myself tearing up a little bit, just remembering the times that it did hit me. that I had done this to myself. So I'll try and talk about that, in a second. The times that it became more real to me there were, as I keep saying, there were a few. There was one incident. There was one incident in particular that I remember, that I was out to dinner with an old friend of mine. And at that time I was supposed to be on oxygen, but again, my rebellious teenage phase lasted. At this point, I think I was 21. And I was still being like, I don't need it. I'm fine. I can walk, and I'm just a little bit out of breath. So we were out to dinner. I had my oxygen in my car in case I needed it, because I don't need it. And I couldn't even walk. It was after dinner, and we were walking outside, and I practically collapsed outside because I couldn't breathe. I was gasping for air, and he ran to my car to grab my oxygen. And I remember just sitting in like a little patch of grass in the parking lot of that restaurant. And the pain, it was a pain I eventually got very used to, because it was a pain that I felt. I think that was the first time that I remember feeling that pain of not being able to breathe. And it's not just a pain of not being able to breathe. It is, sorry. It is the fear. It is just not being able to get air. And it's just terrifying. I could feel myself kind of passing out, and I was just sitting there, like trying to grab onto the little ledge of that patch of grass that I was sitting on, just trying to, I didn't know what else to do. And even thinking about it now, obviously it's really emotional, but it's like, I don't know how to describe it to anybody unless you have experienced drowning. Unless you've experienced almost drowning, that is what it is. I have read a few articles of, other people with CF describing their experiences with that, something similar with them, where they couldn't catch their breath, and they're gasping for air. It's just like you're drowning. You're drowning without water, because you try so hard, and it doesn't matter how deep of a breath you try to take, because your airways are clogged up with the mucus, and because they have shrank so much from scar tissue from being sick over and over again, they're not working anymore. So it's very hard to describe, other than it being the most terrified that I have ever been in my life. And that it wasn't the only time that happened. It happened a few times even while I was on oxygen, when I got really bad. When I was on oxygen, it happened a few times because my oxygen wasn't up high enough. And you think about that, oxygen is being rushed in through my nose. And even that's not enough for me to get enough air to survive. So it was during those times, there was, that time with the restaurant, and looking back on it, that wasn't a very long walk, but the times where I got out of breath like that became a lot shorter in distance. It was in my house. at the time. There were times where I couldn't even go to the bathroom without getting out of breath in that way. Multiple times in the shower, I had to sit. I couldn't stand for longer than a few minutes. Just the act of standing took that much effort out of me. And so those were the times where it shattered me, where, again, the realization that I wasn't going to get better this time, that the only way that I was going to be able to live was to have the surgery. And I know that I may seem a little dramatic right now, but it wasn't something that I ever thought could happen. If you show that you are not willing to take care of yourself when you're sick, how do they expect you to take care of yourself when they put somebody else's organs inside of you? This is going into more territory. It is a gift and a curse to receive a transplant, in my opinion. And it solely depends on what kind of transplant. You know, there are obviously kidney transplants where, you know, you may have a surviving donor. And I'm not talking about those kinds of things. I'm talking about the ones where the donor dies. And you get to be saved. You know, that's not something that you should take lightly. The fact that somebody died and I got a second chance to live is something that I deal with a lot. And it is probably the reason why I get very emotional talking about it. I do have a lot of survivor's guilt for it. I don't see how my shitty ass decisions with being rebellious, with, you know, just mistakes that I've made in general in life led me to the path where I got gifted these lungs and I'm able to live while somebody else's child, you know, another person with a life ahead of them died. And you know, obviously they didn't, like, you know, they die in accidents, they die, you know, from things that nobody can control. But it's the fact that I got to live and that they died that just, I will never understand it. I don't know, that's just something that I live with. I don't think I deserve it. I think that's pretty obvious as the way I'm talking about it. I don't think that I deserved it. I'm happy that I am alive. I am very saddened that somebody died for it, or that somebody died and that I'm here. It could have been, you know, the greatest person in the world. I didn't know them. And yet my shitty ass got to live instead. And that's something I struggle with a lot. I've gotten all the real emotional deep stuff out of the way. I'm sorry if I keep on sniffling. When I cry, I cry, honey. I cry a lot. But if we're going to try and press on, I'm going to try and do this makeup look as best I can. Maybe. I don't know yet. I lost a lot of weight. Because they say that with CF, because you are struggling so much to breathe, they say, you know, just walking at a normal speed is the equivalent of running a mile, because you are you're using so much energy up to try to breathe. And you lose a lot of weight. I'm not sure if the C.F Foundation covers that. They might. I just know that is what they always told me. And I know that at the time of my transplant, I was 110 pounds. Right now I'm about 130. And you can really see it in my face in one picture I'm going to put up here. You can really just see how sunken in my face is and things like that. So I was 110 pounds at the time of surgery. When I got out of the hospital 2 weeks later after transplant, I was 97 pounds. And it took me years to get my weight up. I had a lot of struggles with it because you don't want to eat when you're that sick. You don't want to drink anything. You don't want to eat. You don't feel like eating. You have to force yourself to eat. And when you force yourself to eat, you feel sick. And that just might be the nature of the beast. I don't know if everybody goes through that. I know that a lot of people with CF have trouble retaining weight, gaining weight. Again, it's probably all right there in the foundation website. So let's skip ahead to when I actually got on the list. It was actually number 2 on the list. So what number 2 on the list means is that there is, number 1 is the worst. They need it more than you do type of thing. And obviously your number can go up or down depending on who is going to be on the list. And it's this big organization that gathers up all the data of all the people who need transplants that decides your number. But your number isn't the only thing that they take into consideration. They also take, obviously, who is going to die, coma, accident, what have you. If they match your body type, your blood type, your height, just an enormous amount of factors go into it. So just because I was number 2 on the list doesn't mean I could have been number 10 on the list. And if somebody died and they didn't fit numbers 1 through 9 on the list and they fit me, it's kind of common sense when you think about it. And so obviously 7 years ago today, I got the call. And what's funny is that I always had my phone on, right? Always, because they tell you need to keep your phone on, because when we call you, you need to be able to be here within 2 hours. And for whatever reason, my phone didn't go off that day. I remember this very distinctly. My mother came in. She rushed into my door. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning. I was dead asleep. She rushed into my door and she goes, "Elizabeth, is your phone on?" And I go, "Yeah, why?" All groggy. "Oh, why? Leave me alone." She goes, "They have lungs for you." And I'm like, "What?" No, they don't. You're playing me. Go away. She goes, "No, we have to get up right now." She turns on the lights and I'm like, it all happened very fast. I actually don't remember the drive down. Yeah. I barely remember that day. I remember we waited a long time because the lungs were from somewhere where they had to fly them in, I believe. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's what was going on. And I went in, I remember kissing my mom. Here we go again. Nope, we're gonna be okay. I remember kissing my mom. She told me she loved me. I told her I loved her. And they wheeled me into the operating room. And it was right before, it was 8 o'clock at night. And, like I said, this had been an all day thing. They called me at about 9 o'clock in the morning. And right before they were putting me under, I remember this. My surgeon, I had overheard the nurses saying that he had a meeting, or maybe the surgeons or the nurses in the operating room were talking about how they had a meeting, or he had a meeting in the morning. And I remember saying to him, "I hope you make it. I hope you make it to your meeting in time in the morning." He goes, "Nope, we're going to take it." He goes, "We're going to take care of you first." He didn't make it. He didn't make it to his meeting because they didn't actually open me up until I think 1 o'clock in the morning. So he didn't make it to his meeting. And I'd be wrong if I said I didn't feel a little guilty about that. But you know, he's a surgeon. That's what he does. He saves lives the best he can. Hi, I'm back. Now that I have stopped crying, and obviously I did my makeup the way I wanted it, we're gonna go ahead and end this video. There's not really much else to say after that. It was a long time after my surgery. It was a long time getting back to a new normal, is what they call it. A lot of physical therapy. So what these colors represent is the purple stands for cystic fibrosis awareness, and the green is for transplant awareness. And I think that's all transplant, not just lung transplants. So I don't know really how I feel about this look, but that is why I chose those colors. That is why I have the cheeks in the ribbons on, even though my ribbons are very poorly drawn. It was first time I've done them on my face, so I can't be too mad. So thank you so much for listening to me. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for listening to my sniffling tears. A lot of things were brought up that I haven't really thought about in a very long time, so please don't think too poorly of me for that. All of the links are going to be down in the description for a tune-up and the C.F Foundation in the description below. It'd be great if you wanted to learn more about CF and about transplants. I think that would be a great place for you to start. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to subscribe, that would be cool. My Instagram is going to be down below as well. I've never put in my plugs before, so that's new. Alright, I do have another topic in another video that I really want to talk about that is pretty close to me as well. I actually really like these Let's Talk segments. You know, I originally created this channel to learn makeup, and while I do learn that more off screen than on screen like I planned, I really like coming on here and just talk about things that I have gone through. I hope that maybe this was a wake-up call for somebody, to, you know, who may have CF, who was rebellious like I was, to get your ass in shape and take care of yourself. And for anybody who is waiting to have a transplant, I wish you all the luck. Do what your doctors say. And, you know, you guys are, while I don't believe in thoughts and prayers, you guys are definitely in my heart, and I hope the best for you guys. Okay, bye.